That's right, I'm posting my Minari review on the day of the Golden Globes.
We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
23. Hey, what is up, you guys? This is Steffi, aka In My Humble Opinion, and welcome back to another movie review, or I'm gonna try and keep pushing an IMHO Film Club movie review. In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about Minari. So Minari stars Steven Yeun, Yeri Han, Yoo Jung-yoon, Noel Cho, Alan Kim, and Will Patton, which my dad pointed out that same guy who played Coach Yost from Remember the Titans. Just had to point that out because Remember the Titans, one of my favorite movies.
You make sure they remember forever the night they played the Titans.
But Minari was written and directed by Lee Isaac Chung and was actually inspired by his own personal experience of growing up in rural America. So Minari is a movie that follows a Korean American family who move from California to Arkansas to start a farm in the hopes of fulfilling their American dream. So as in all movie reviews on this channel, I'm going to be talking about my personal pros and cons and my overall rating, but I'm also going to get a little bit into the controversy surrounding Minari and the Golden Globes, which again, I intentionally chose to post this video on the day of the Golden Globes. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so let's talk about some of the pros of this movie. So for me, my first huge pro of Minari is the relationship between the grandma and the grandson. So the grandma, of course, is played by Yoo Jung-yoon, and the grandson is played by the adorable Alan Kim. And for me, watching their relationship is really the heart of Minari and what makes this movie so special. In the movie, after the parents realize that they need someone to watch their kids while they're working their full-time jobs, they contact the grandma, Sunja, to come to the United States from Korea to watch the kids while they're working. And aside from there being a generational gap between the grandma and the grandchildren, there's also a huge culture gap because their grandma is a very Korean grandma while the grandkids are very westernized. I loved watching the grandma because she is not your typical American grandma. She doesn't bake cookies, to the confusion of her grandson, but despite that, she still is who she is and she cares for her grandchildren and loves them in her own way. And then I also really love the grandson too because he's a bit mischievous and he kind of likes to push the boundaries a bit, but he's still very lovable and adorable. And so when you get those two personalities, those two characters in the form of this grandma and grandson, it just makes for a really entertaining but yet heartwarming relationship to evolve because they truly start in one place, but then of course by the end of the movie they emotionally end up in another place, and it's just like, oh, it just hits you in the feels. So my second pro of this movie are the performances. So personally for me, I feel like Minari is really an ensemble piece because it's a movie that focuses on a family, and every single actor does a phenomenal job in portraying their particular role in this family. You have Steven Yeun, who plays the ambitious patriarch of the family, and he is really trying to pave a way for his family in this new country, and he's so desperate to make this farm work. And then you also have Yeri Han, the matriarch, who really cares for everyone in her family. She's kind of like in the middle of this like multi-generational family. And then of course the kids are dealing with the fact that they're Asian in this predominantly white area. And then you have the grandma now living with them. She's trying to make sense of her grandchildren and the grandchildren are trying to make sense of her. All of these different dynamics at play really sets the ground for a lot of great performances across the board. And to me personally, if I were to choose a standout, I really enjoyed the performance of Yoo Jung-yoon, who plays the grandma. I personally hope that she could sneak in an Oscar nomination in there for Best Supporting Actress. The film really changes as soon as her character becomes part of the story, and I just really enjoyed her performance in this movie. And my third pro to this movie is just watching the struggle of the American dream. I think a lot of movies and television shows really glamorize what the struggle looks like, but in Minari, man, it is far from glamorous. There are so many times in this movie where your heart literally breaks for this family because they are just going through so much. You have the fact that they're trying to start a farm, and on top of that, their living situation is not the best because they're literally living in a home on wheels. Also, the little boy, David, has a heart condition that stresses out his mom, and that in turn stresses you out. It just really seems like one thing after another. There was a point in the movie where I was literally thinking to myself, damn, can't these people just catch a break? But even though they show all these different struggles they're facing, the movie doesn't feel overly sentimental. Like, you can still sympathize for the family, but you never pity them. And I like that the movie does that because I feel like it upholds a certain sense of dignity, not just for this particular Korean American immigrant family, but for all immigrant stories. Now let's talk about the cons, or should I just say the con. And I kind of personally feel like it's a bit unfair of me to put this as a con, but I'm just gonna throw this out there as a con. The con for me with this movie is that it's a bit of a slow burner. Some people may not mind that, but if you are someone who is personally used to wham bam, there's a lot of action happening, and that even in and of itself isn't really a fair statement because it's not like nothing happens in this movie. There's a lot that happens in this movie, but it's a very meditative, quieter movie, and some people may not like that. I still highly recommend you at least make the effort to watch this movie. It's a story definitely worth watching, but I would just throw that as a con. It's definitely a very indie movie in that way. Alright, and before I give my overall rating of the movie, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the controversy. So there was a lot of controversy surrounding this movie the day the Golden Globe nominations were announced. Actually, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the day the Golden Globe nominations were announced. Emily in Paris, I May Destroy You snub. But just a little background here for those of you guys who aren't familiar. Minari was actually nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, despite the fact that it was financed and distributed by Plan B and A24, which are both American production companies, despite the fact that it was written and directed by a Korean American who was born in Denver, and despite the fact that it stars Korean American actors and is quite literally a movie about an immigrant family pursuing their American dream. Despite all of these Americanisms, this movie was not eligible for the Best Picture category and got submitted as a foreign film solely because it is spoken predominantly in Korean.
While the Golden Globes eligibility states that for any film to be placed in the foreign film category requires at least 50% non-English dialogue, many are saying this film could not be more American.
Even though that has been a rule with the Golden Globes, I really hope in the near future we start examining what makes a movie American and what counts as an American story. America as a country is made up and built off the backs of so many different races and cultures, and a byproduct of that is that there are so many different languages spoken in America. So to other a movie, just because it isn't predominantly spoken in English, not only feels very dated, but it also feels low-key racist. So hopefully the Golden Globes can get with the times. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Alright, so my overall rating for Minari is a solid A-. Minari is a movie that the longer I watched, the more emotionally invested I became. I genuinely appreciate any story that depicts the immigrant narrative, no matter what background, because I'm the child of immigrant parents as well. Additionally, I actually got emotional at one point watching this movie, specifically that moment in the movie where David and his grandma were walking across the field. And it was to the point where I cried because watching that relationship, that grandma-grandson relationship, actually made me start missing my own grandparents as well. And for the people who are inevitably going to ask, well, is Minari as good as Parasite? To that, I would say an Asian movie doesn't have to be Parasite in order for you to want to see it. While the comparison between the two movies is understandable, Minari is a completely different story altogether. And just as not all Asian people look the same, not all Asian stories are the same. Alright, well, that's about it for this video. If you liked it, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and please turn on the notification button down below so you know when a new video from me comes out. And comment down below your thoughts on Minari. Do you think it's gonna win Best Foreign Film today at the Golden Globes? Let me know your thoughts on that, and also your thoughts on the controversy, because, you know, hopefully they will fix that soon. As always, everything I said was just my own personal thoughts and all my humble opinion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!